Welcome to Beauties and Beasties, the independent pest podcast for the UK.
Hello. How are we doing today?
Yes, a bit different today. We've got a bit of a turn up for the books, haven't we?
We do. Well, we've Sean and I have interviewed you in the past, and I think my interview came and went when when my old man was on. It was meant to be us interviewing him, but that rapidly turned on its head, didn't it?
Turned
So-
on its head.
Yeah, it did. That, anyone who wants to go back and have a listen to that one wants to see me get humiliated, and I'm sure there's a whole plethora of you out there that would relish the
That
very
was a good
thought of
one. I
that.
enjoyed that.
Go back and just watch my dad persistently drop me in it. So there we go. And yes, yours was one of the early interviews, wasn't it? It was quite early on last year.
Yeah, I think it was still on Facebook, wasn't it? I think it was when we were doing Facebook even.
If it was still on Facebook, then I think we 100% need to sort of like return to that when we have our full HD capacity. Yeah. Vote in the comments, guys. Do we need to re-interview Hugh just to see what's changed? I think that's a big yes, isn't it? Absolutely.
I don't think so.
How's life been treating you, Hugh?
Yeah, it's not too bad down here in sunny Somerset. Our new chap has started, Stephen, and he's had a good first week. Got to say thanks to Ross for taking him out and training him. So yeah. So after the long winding road of trying to get somebody to have the job, it's finally come to fruition. So yeah, all good this end. And you?
I'm all good. Like lots of people saying hello. So hi everyone. Great to have you in from the beginning. There we go. Just the first question of the evening: is Hugh going to give Sean some grief? I think that's absolutely going to be the case, because we can't let him off lightly. We can all see him sat in the green room at the moment. Grinning away, but he's. There we go. No, my week's been good. Just very quickly. So we always talk about recruitment. We always talk about bringing new people in. How long did it take you from putting that first advert out to the interviews to getting someone actually in the field? How long did it take you to actually get that process done from end to end?
8 weeks, 10 weeks, I think, 10 weeks. Well, the crazy thing was we went through the whole not LinkedIn. What's it called? It's gone off the top of my head now.
Indeed.
Sorry. Yeah, I just complete blank then. It's getting old. Went through the whole Indeed thing, and actually we got somebody that didn't even apply for it on Indeed. So it was great. But about 12 weeks. I mean, we had 54, 52, 54 applicants.
That's actually really impressive. So out of those 54 applicants, okay.
Yeah, go on. 50. Go on. Ask the question.
You know the question I'm going to ask. Out of those 54, how many were actually suitable for the role? 4.
We got
50 chances.
We invited 5 people for an interview. 1 person didn't turn up. Just didn't turn up. And the other obviously 3 weren't. Nobody's going to mention those things. The other 3 had interviews, and one of them was bang on. But yeah, I mean, looking at some of them, I don't think people have to apply for a job anymore. But the thing was, some of them you just didn't put any effort into the application at all. You wouldn't think there was such a thing as spell check. So no, it was
really.
Yeah.
No.
One guy, of course, you can't ask people's ages anymore. You're not allowed to ask someone's age.
No.
So of course you do the sons and you go work backwards through all of the you know, the qualifications and everything. Oh, we must have gone to school about then. One guy was 67. And it's like, I genuinely can't.
You remember being 67, Hugh. You were probably. I'm sorry. It's a running joke. There we go. I mean, how? So, were you looking for just people with like level 2s, or have you taken someone on with the idea of training them up? And okay, yeah, that's.
I mean, it's true, as you know, was mentioned on the recruitment podcast. There are not many people with level 2s just kicking around waiting to get a job. So no, we made a decision. I think we had one person that was trained actually apply. But yeah, as George said, back along. Yeah, they're just not kicking around.
Gary Ashley, nothing wrong with being in your 60s. There you go.
You would know.
I wouldn't know. I'm still to turn 40. Would you believe it or not?
Really?
Yeah, genuinely.
Yes, you know.
I mean, I turned 40 in 3 months or 4 months, but you know, I'm still grasping desperately onto that ledge of like turned 40.
There's worse to come, believe me.
I know. I mean, I've gone grey. It could be worse. I could be going bald. Then it's going to just be 3 bald presenters on Beauties and Beasties, isn't it?
Funny enough, I actually dreaded going bald. I absolutely dreaded going bald, but my dad was bald by the time he was like 23. So I had a good few years on him.
But Hugh says he dreads going bald. He shared the other day dreaded. He shared the other day in just a chat of ours a picture of him from what have been and must have been what the late 70s, early 80s. The man had a mullet, and when I say a mullet, it was a full-on business at the front, party at the back, Hulk Hogan, WWE sort of like mullet. It was glorious. I feel like you should get a wig made. Just revisit those.
I can't imagine what possessed me, but it must be the sort of equivalent of a man bun these days. You know, it was.
Oh, what's wrong with my man bun? Go away.
You'll be wearing a skinny jeans next.
With you know, power lifters' thighs like this, all jeans are skinny jeans, mate. Right. I think that's by far enough too much.
You've got to say, please like, share and follow. Don't forget, if you haven't followed the podcast already, we're going to get that golden 1,000. So we've got 50 people to go. So please invite anybody that you know to follow, and we will get there.
Yeah, 50 to go. It seems, I mean, it doesn't seem far at all, but I remember when we first started this off and we sort of like hit that milestone of 50 people, we were like, yes, that's so many. It was so, it's come on a long way. And, you know, there are names here I can see popping up in the chat who have been chatting away from the very, very beginning. So, yeah, well done to you guys. That's definitely a commitment on your behalf.
Yes, I did, Terry.
What? Oh, hang on. So Terry just asked, Hugh, didn't you post a photo of your Renticle days some time ago? Yeah, I think that's one we're all talking about. Your time on the island, wasn't it? The island.
Oh, that one. That was a different one. Yeah.
That was it. I think we actually covered that in Hugh's interview. So if you want to go and hear about the time on the island, the Millionaire's Island, have a go back through the thing. But yeah, what did you think of last week's podcast? Before we bring Sean on, last week, what were your thoughts? It's all about compliance. Useful stuff for you there. I know you've got a couple of field biologists on your team as well. So how did they find the whole conversation?
I haven't had a chance to talk to Neil yet about it, but yeah, it was quite helpful, and I was surprised when Katie was surprised with how she had changed her opinion of pest controllers, how much more she thought that we knew than she first thought, which was quite refreshing, actually. You know, They don't think
It's not the
just
It's not the first time that's happened either, is it? Because when we had the gentleman I'm going to mention, when we did our Asian Hornet month last year, I know, dun, 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 I've only mentioned it once. We've got another 2 before Beetlejuice turns up. But when we had that mini series, which I thoroughly enjoyed actually, and I think we need to do another mini series this year. So guys, if you have thoughts as to what this year's mini series should be on, slap them down in the comments. But the first gentleman we had on, who was that private beekeeper, you know, just regular Joe Blogs beekeeper, not anything to do with DEFRA or the Asian Hornet Brigade or anything like that. He came on and he clearly said that he was, yeah, there we go, Trevor, thank you very much. He was looking, he didn't think that our industry was quite as mature and advanced as it was. And he came away from that pleasantly surprised. And it's really sort of like invigorating when you do have these conversations, because yeah, we are more than what people expect. And sometimes it's kind of nice to be underestimated like that, because we're a very sort of like advanced industry, and we are involved with people's lives considerably more than they think. If you think about sort of like pest management touches every part of the food industry, from field to fork and then beyond that. Yeah, so there we go. But talking about that, Hugh, how do you do your treatment reports? How do you get your guys to do your treatment reports these days? What's your format?
We use the iPads, and at present we use Form Connect. But that will soon probably be changing.
My point is, so when did you make that evolutionary leap from pen and paper systems, you know, written reports, across to digital
iPads.
reporting? Yeah.
Oh, maybe 8 years ago.
All right, so you were quite an early adopter to the digital reporting systems then.
Yeah. Yes.
What was it that pushed you to do that then? Because, you know, a lot of people are still, let's say, for want of a better term, analog reporting. They're still reporting using sort of like pen and paper. What was it that pushed you guys over?
Just looks so much more professional.
Okay.
And again, I would never have known about it if it hadn't have been, I can't remember. It might have been on Facebook, so maybe 8 years ago. It might have been on one of the forums when somebody brought up Form Connect when it first got spoken about. And I can't remember who it was. It might have been Andy. I don't think so. I think it was Michael Flatters, I think it was, that first talked about Form Connect. And I bought it, looked at it, and we just didn't look back, really, to be honest.
So it does change the way in which you are approaching the situation.
So much more easy. I mean, I know that we're going to talk about Sean's system as well later, but so much more easy having a photo to show to the customer of a problem. You know, there's no like, oh, well, I didn't understand what it was. I couldn't see what it was. Well, there it is in black and white in front of you. So, yeah.
It's going to be a really interesting conversation, actually. And as you say, there are several different sort of systems on, but we're quite lucky in the sense that one of our very own members here actually has their own system. So in the element of fairness, there are others out there, but let's bring on someone that we know, and we can, as well as dig information out of him, absolutely give him a hard old time as well. So Sean, are you ready? Are you ready? Oh, it doesn't matter if you're ready. There you are. Hey, Sean.
Hello, Sean.
How you doing?
Yeah,
you right?
Too bad. How are you?
Yeah, we're okay.
Good. What's it like sitting at the bottom of the screen now, being on the other side?
Yeah, it's, I don't know. Let's ask it at the end. We'll see what we say. But yeah.
Wait till those last 3 questions.
Exactly. Well, we interviewed you a little while before as well. This isn't like the first time that we've chatted to you about this, and I think last time you said it's a completely different dynamic set, you know, being asked the questions, isn't it? So don't worry.
Yeah.
Or should we take as normal? We've got no script. So should we wind it all the way back to why, how,
Yeah.
wind back, and how you even got into pest control? Because I believe you, unlike a couple of us, you have had other jobs.
Yeah, so I grew up in Newcastle, 2 brothers, mum, dad. Grew up in the council area, like in like one of the rough bits of Newcastle. 11-year-old, moved to a posh bit of Newcastle.
Wait,
then,
what?
Yeah, there is a few bits like that, and then went
Does
through
that mean the
school.
toilet moved from outside to inside? Posh.
Yeah, that's it. Do you know what it is? You're pretty much fucking hit the nail on the head. Yeah, that's exactly what would have happened. So yeah, and then got to be 18-year-old, went to university to do a maths and physics degree. Got there, fucking hated it. No, I done me Cat B asbestos training yesterday, so that's why it came off. So and then hadn't got through my first year. I was still 18 and just had to get out of there. Like fucking hated it. I was starting to stew. I was becoming, and one of my friends had joined the Met as a police officer, and I spoke to him and he said he was earning good money down there, and I just thought, fuck it, I'm off. Like, why travel the world can come to you. Thought being a police officer would be relatively easy because I'd grown up in a shipment in Newcastle and sort of understood crime. So I jumped to the other side of the tracks, started off down there, and that was like the start of my life. Done 4 or 5 years down there. Went to a crime squad, done surveillance work and all that sort of stuff, and then transferred back to Northumbria. But when I was a kid, I was always into hunting, shooting, fishing, all that sort of stuff. That never stopped all the way through being a police officer. I would come home.
Is that where Vera comes from? Northumberland. That's where Vera's set, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Did they base it on you, did they? But just the male version?
They definitely did not. You'll find out why they didn't base it on me in about 10 seconds. So I came back and was always into it. So got myself a couple of dogs when I come home, had some lurchers and some terriers and all that sort of stuff. And then it all went in a different direction when one day I got a phone call saying the police are raiding your house. They kicked my front door in. The shit hit the fan, big style, like fucking big style. And yeah, that was me finished at the police. And a very long story short, because it would take fucking hours to tell you about it. I'd done a lot of undercover work where I wasn't given an identity, but I would assume an identity different to mine. So it wasn't like surveillance where you'd just be in plain clothes following someone. You would actually go in, become friends with, live a different life for a long period of time, move around the country to different places, living away from home, buying crack, heroin, stuff like that. Then I'd come home, I would do work at home, and I was buying drugs, working in my own area, buying drugs. It was a wild time, and a very long story short, that all got dragged into it, and it all went wrong. And one of the lads who I was with when it went wrong, I basically got accused of digging a badger where I hadn't. We had permission to be on the land. The police officers told lies. They didn't realize that I was a cop, so they told lies to get a warrant. And then by the time they'd come through the door, the die was cast, and it was just a straight fight to the death after that. One point they told us I was looking about 7 years in jail if it all went terribly wrong. That's a fucking wake-up call. That's a major wake-up call. That's fucking smelling salts for you.
Isn't there something about badges that the law is slightly different, isn't it? You are presumed guilty.
Yeah, there's only 2 laws. I can't remember what the other one is, but it's reverse burden of proof. So you are guilty until you prove your innocence. So I had to prove my innocence. I didn't get charged or anything. Managed to prove that it genuinely wasn't me, much to their dismay. One of the funny things that happened, it's not funny, it is now, but what people don't see is when politics come into policing, the lines get blurred. So we had a wildlife crimes officer. We had a wildlife crimes officer who was also an animal rights activist. left the police to go and join these animal rights activism things, and got paid a lot of money for it. And the way, because I knew what he was doing, I could see the way that they were presenting the evidence, and it was just absolutely horrific. So I can remember sitting there looking, thinking, I'm not a fucking mug. I can see what you're doing. I know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. And they're like, nah, fuck you. Like, and then I got a message from the undercover unit who were responsible for a lot of it, saying, we ain't fucking stand up for you. You're on your own, son. And I was like, all right. So anyways, that we could talk about that all night. I'm not going to. And then that was it. I can remember, you know, it was like Christmas Eve, 2000, coming into 2008. And you know, when you get them gut feelings in your stomach where you think, this is my fucking year, this is it. I fucking knew that 2008 was going to be my year. By fucking the start of 8th of February 2008, my front door was kicked in. So by the 8th of February, that night, I was lying in a police cell, and I'd done fucking 24 hours. And I think I was interviewed for about 15 of those hours, and I didn't say a word. I didn't even fucking repeat my name. That's how long I was being interviewed for. I remember thinking, you couldn't have got that much more wrong, Sean. But it absolutely was the start of my life. Because one of the lads who I got locked up with knew that I hadn't done it because he was with us, and he was a farrier. So he said, listen, what are you going to do? And I said, obviously, this is fucked. I'm not going back there. He said, well, there's an opportunity for you to be a farrier, like an apprenticeship. So I went and done a 5-year apprenticeship, become a farrier. Still carried on with the dogs, never let it stop us, still hunting, shooting, fishing, killing. And then got set up, and then set up a little website for pest control. And the idea was that as I broke, because it breaks your body, and my farrier business slowed down, the pest control would pick up, and then when they got to there, they'd jump, and I would do this. So I would be like,
yeah, but why did you suddenly think, oh, I'll do pest control? There must have been you must have seen somebody somewhere and thought, ooh.
No. So what had happened was that when you're a farrier, you are absolutely acutely aware that you have a lifespan of your back, elbows, and arms. You know, you're going to break. And I'd always wanted to do pest control when I was younger, but because I was quite academic at school, I was always talked out of it. Don't do that. There's no money in it. Don't do that. What are you going to do? Kill rats for the rest of your life. You're too clever for that. There's easier ways to make money. And I always listened. And then it just, because I'd been through so much with everything that had went on, I just thought to myself, you know what it is? Like, cometh the hour, cometh the man. I'm going to do it. Like, I've always wanted to do it. I'm going to go and do it. So one of my pals at that time who I was shooing for, who's went on to be one of my closest pals and has just won Tees Businesswoman of the Year. At the time, she was a designer in a internet business, and I said, well, could you build us a website? And she said, yeah. So I paid her my money. She built us a website, and the phone started to ring. I set it up with my dad, actually. It was me and my dad to start off with, and the idea was that he would do the work and I would do the running behind the scenes. After I'd finished work, I'd come in, I'd do the paperwork and all that. But we had a totally separate, totally different experiences, Alex and his dad. Like, my dad ended up my dad ended up falling out with me over it. I didn't fall out with him, but he's not spoke to us since. He hasn't spoken to us for about 5 years. I went up on, Carly asked us, me missus asked us to bite the bullet and go and see them on New Year's Day. So on New Year's Day, I went up, walked in the house. My mum was over the moon to see us. My dad didn't say a word to us all day. So I fucking left, and that was it, done. You know, but you've got to, you know. And I'm sure he's got his own take on it, and it'll be different to mine. So I'm not gonna say anything bad about it, but you know. So and then by that point, if anyone knows me, they'll know that I enjoy going to work. I enjoy getting up early. I enjoy working hard. And when it came to being a farrier, I was lying in bed at like 10 o'clock. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't go to work. I hated it. I fucking hated it. I couldn't bring myself to shoe a horse. I hated dealing with well, I didn't hate dealing with the horses. I hated dealing with the people with the horses. And then I had this little business in the background that was sort of not doing anything. Elaine was doing nothing. And I just thought, you know what it is? Like, I've got to give it a go. So I just...
What did you hate most about it then, being a farrier?
The horses don't want to be there. The horses, like, when you've got a pet dog, your pet dog wants to be with you. He loves you. You're the center of his universe. A horse is a man's beast. A horse is a man's beast. He's in a stable because you put him there. When you put him in a field, he fucks off and he doesn't want to come back to you. He only come back to you because he's hungry. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no, and they can say what they want. The horses do not want to be there. And they break incredibly easily. And it's, I didn't like it. I didn't like dealing with the people. The people are arseholes, like, as a general rule. I had some good customers, but you know, I just fucking hated it. I hated it. And we had this opportunity, and I just thought, I was getting a bit older. I was 30 probably, coming up 30, 31, 32, I can't remember now. And we set the website away and it was doing something. I thought, I've just got to do something. So I just woke up one morning and said, that's it, I'm not shoeing horses anymore. I'm going to jump on this. I'd saved up enough to probably pay me mortgage for about 2 months. So I knew I was 2 months clear, and we never had to touch it. You know, as soon as you start putting time and effort into something, if you really want it and you put the time and effort in, then the rewards coming and started coming and growing. And yeah, exactly, do a job and you'll never, and that's exactly how I feel. I never feel like I enjoy a day in my life. So, and yeah, that was it. Applied a bloke. And how many people are going to go, that's exactly the path I went down. I employed someone self-employed to do the work. I was still doing a bit of farriery here to keep the bills coming in. So I applied someone self-employed. Didn't work. I don't think that ever works. Shit me pants because I needed to employ someone, but I didn't think I could afford to. So eventually bit the bullet and employed someone, which was the first lad who's still with us now, Ellis. Yeah. When that's true. When Clive come to do his very first removal, the very first removal I did, I got Clive in to come and show how to do it. And when he come up, I opened the back of my van and I had a full farrier kit in the back. He's like, what the fuck's that? And I was like, I fucking shoe horses as well, you know. Yeah. And then
you're not a window cleaner.
Oh yeah, not a window cleaner.
Oh, I'm a farrier.
Oh yeah. And then, but as a consequence, I'm not bad at fabricating and metal work and stuff like that. We made some pretty cool metal work for bird work where we needed to put extra supports in, and we built all sorts of, yeah. And then it just kind of went from there. And then once we had Alice, Dale come and joined us. Shit me pants, because I didn't think I could afford him. And then you get him, and then all of a sudden you've got 3 vans on the road, haven't you? And we need another lad on the road, and I'm shit me pants because I don't think I can afford him. But we're going to get there, and you just keep soldiering on, don't you?
They don't do that sort of thing at school anymore, do they? Where, you know, you've got a forge and you make a shepherd's crook or something like that. Because I used to quite enjoy metal work.
Did you go to school in the 1980s? No, 1890s or something? I mean, I don't think anyone did iron work at school. You're kidding me.
We did. Yeah, of course you did. You had a forge, and everybody's behind the metalwork teacher's knife back. You wanted to make a knife, you know, so you had to watch if he's coming. I'll forge this knife, and I stuck it on the end of a broomstick and made a ninja.
I did a video. Alan Jones has been a guest on here. I did a video. I needed a mole probe. I went in my shed and I had 2 lumps of steel about that long, you know, about fucking, I don't know, 20, 24 inches each. And I needed to make a mole probe. And I thought, fuck, what am I going to do here? I thought, this will make a pretty cool video. So I just put the camera down and forged it, fire welded them together, jumped the end up, thickened the end up, spun it, turned it into a handle. And I made a mole probe out of 2 lumps of steel. If I showed you it now, you can't see the weld in it. I was relatively handy with a hammer.
We don't seem to do stuff like that at school, though, do we?
Tell you what, just sorry to interrupt you there. I had to bite my tongue the other night. And was mentioned earlier on about this fucking wokeness. Gets in the other night and says to Matthew, my oldest boy, how are you? How was school? He says, hey, what did you do? He said, oh, Dad, we've done this story called If. And I went, you mean the poem If? And he went, yeah, do you know it? I said, yeah, of course I know it. I said, it's a beautiful poem and it's one that you should read and understand. And he went, yeah, yeah. I said, what did they teach you about it at school? And he went, oh, that it's sexist. Fucking what? If. And I was thinking sexist. So I got it out and me and him read it. He said, what's that? I said, son, it's just a dad telling his boy about qualities that will make him a decent man that can contribute to society. There's nothing fucking sexist about that. I could feel me blood boiling. I was thinking, do I go into school and say something and nip it in the bud now? Like, what the fuck he's doing? I spoke to his dad, my father-in-law, and he said, oh, Sean, don't get him alienated at school and stuff like that. He's quite a caring boy, my oldest boy. And I was like, all right, well, but fucking sexist If, like one of the most beautiful poems ever written, but the world we're living in it.
I'm just reading it now.
It's the last line. What is more, you will be a man, my son. Yeah, because it says you will be a man, my son. Yeah. So, anyways, let's not dwell on that. They're a bunch of knobheads and at school. You can't touch a fucking fuck all, can you?
Back on track then. Why have we brought you in here? Obviously, it's to have your first recital of the poem If. So, in a deep voice now, speak from the stomach. No, it's so obviously when you started, you had Ellis, you had Dale. You had I imagine you created a treatment report sheet for them, printed it out, had them scribble on it every time they did various treatments, X, Y, and Z. What was it that pushed you to go from paper reports to digital reports? And then why did you decide, you know what, this isn't for me, and instead of sort of like having a word with the manufacturer or you just decided to go completely off piste and just make your own? So what was the process there? That stuff.
Yes, I can tell you what was happening was, I want to tell you that I was doing my paperwork correctly, but I probably wasn't. I was doing the paperwork that I could do in the time that I had. I would go home and I would write up treatment reports, and then drop them off next time I was there. Sometimes I'd forget to do it, and I knew that I wasn't doing very well with my paperwork. In fact, I was doing fucking atrociously. And I was aware that Rento, Virgo, Ecolab, they had their own online systems. So I went on the internet to try and, in my naivety, I thought this is going to be dead easy. I'll put into Google Pest Software and I'll get something. And we got lots of hits, and it said this is perfect for pest controllers. So I went on, I spoke to them, and it was like, yeah, it's a £4,000 setup fee, it's a £3,000 setup fee for us to get it to where you want it, and then it'll work. And I was like, I thought you said it was perfect for pest controllers. And they're like, yeah, but it doesn't do treatment reports. And it became very obvious to me that what was happening was that all the software that I certainly spoke to for our industry was a cut and shut from another industry and pushed into it. And at the time I was doing a thing called B&I, and there was a bloke in there called Gary, and he's a very, very quiet man, Gary. He'll stand in the corner and he won't talk to anyone. He's not a people person by any stretch of the imagination, but me and him, I'm one end, I'm Mr. Chatty, never fucking shut up. And then there's Gary at the other end who sits on his own not talking. But when we did talk, there was just a brilliant friendship there, we got on incredibly well. So I rang him up and I said, Gaz, what do I do with this? And he said, well, actually, I can fucking build systems. So I said, can you? And he said, yes. I said, right, well, build as a system. So when he built it, it was a CRM. It was just customers to start off with. And then I was like, could you build a treatment report into it? So he said, yeah. So he built in a treatment report. And I started doing them. And then I was like, could I do a little bit of invoicing? He said, yeah. So I paid for it to do that. And then we built a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more functionality into it. And this is why I love CPD now. Rob Simpson from Killgerm come into the old office And I was sitting working, talking. He said, "What's that?" And I said, "Oh, it's software." And he said, "Oh, whose is that then?" And I said, "Well, that's mine." And he went, "You could sell that, you know." And I was like, "Could I?" And he was like, "Yeah, we get asked for it all the time." I was like, "All right." So I rang Gary up and said, "Do you want to go 50-50?" Because I knew it was so expensive just to build the little bit that I had. I absolutely knew that I could not bankroll building a full fucking system. I just couldn't do it. It would have been hundreds of thousands of pounds. There's no getting around it. So I said to Gaz, "Why don't we go 50-50? I'll chuck in the build that we've got no money back. You chuck in your time. I'll sell it. You build it." And I thought I was going to tell him what we wanted and he was going to build it. And so Gary said, "Yeah, that's absolutely fine." And then he would come to us, and as soon as we started getting new customers that were not me, Gary's brilliance come through, because they'd say to her, "Can we have this?" So I'd go to Gaz and say, "We need this done this way." And he's quite a deadpan bloke, so he'd look at you like you had two heads. You go like, "Yeah," and he'd wander off. And I'd think, "He's not fucking interested, this fucker here. Like, what's going on? Like, I've chucked my half in. He's not fucking interested." And I can remember I was ringing him one day and he didn't answer. And I'm thinking, I know he's fucking there. So I must have rang him about fucking 10 times over 12 hours, gets no fucking reply. And I'm thinking, oh, he's had enough. Like, this is too much. He's, you know. And then he rings us back at like 11 o'clock. "You all right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why?" And he's like, "Oh, it's just, you rang us a bit." And I'm like, "Are you all right?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Do we need to have a chat? Is this working for you?" He's like, "Yeah, why would you think that?" I was like, "'Cause I've fucking rang you 6 million times in 12 hours and you haven't answered." And he was like, "Oh, no, when I code, I just go into the zone and I'm coding and I don't hear my phone." Like, because he's just that way. So you'd give him these like requests, "Can you do this?" And he'll come back and he would present something and it would just be 10 times easier than I'd imagined. But he built it in such a way that other people can, and the people who use the system will tell you, it's built by him in such a way that people can manipulate it themselves to the way they want it, if that makes sense. And he was just...
Everybody in the comments, can they answer, just so that we get some sort of gauge, whether you use digital, whether you use pen and paper?
Wayne Dale and stuff like that. So yeah, so that was kind of it. It was, and it just grew and grew and grew, and then we built in support files for on-site folders, digital folders, whatever you want. And obviously, for anyone who's done any of that, you'll know that part of it is they will want, a lot of the auditors will want to see your training records, what training you've done. And even if they don't want to see it, when they do see it, it puts their mind at risk that you are a genuine business. If you're doing training every year, you know, new training, updated training, and they see it, they know you're not a mug. They know you're not, you know, they know you're giving it a bit. So we had this system that where we were adding our own training to this log, this online log. And I was like looking at it, and I thought to myself, do you know what it is? We're fucking halfway there to being a CPD scheme. We are literally halfway there to being a CPD scheme. And we had Alan Buckle on as a guest. Remember that, Al?
Yeah, of course I remember
Alan. Yeah, I was a little bit tricky, actually, because I had a funny feeling that they weren't going to, they probably wouldn't want us to join the party at Crew, or that's how I felt. And afterwards, I spoke to Alan about what it took to do a CPD scheme, and he said there's a criteria you have to go through, and you've got to do this, and you've got to do that, and you've got to do this, and you've got to do that. Right, okay, no bother. And then I was down at Pest Tech, not however many years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and I spoke to the MPTA lot and saying, what's like the stumbling blocks, what's the bottlenecks, where the problems, because there was lots of talk on social media about CPD and stuff. I just thought, you know what it is? We've got a system half built here. We've got a problem that needs solving. We've got the solution. Like, why don't I just fucking build a CPD scheme? So we're set about, we're done with 10, I think there's 10 criteria you have to work through. It's quite a long list. We built a system to answer the 10 things, and in one day I just sent it through and said, yeah, I want to put it in for to become a CPD scheme. And then that was when the shit hit the fan, you know. And then that process has been possibly, I would think it's probably the second most difficult process I've been through, behind only the police thing when that went fucking terribly wrong. You know, it's been that difficult to negotiate. But
Wait. Are you genuinely saying that being, raided by the police, arrested, interviewed for 15 hours, held on suspicion for 24, and threatened with 7 years in jail was as stressful as trying to deal
No, I
with
said
crew in a CBD scheme?
no. I said it was the second most difficult thing we've had to negotiate. So, with me, I always think that whatever the problem is, you break it down into its most simplest forms, and then you just deal with that. So, yeah, with the police thing, I knew what was happening, if that makes sense. I knew the process they were going to go through. So, although it was fucking incredibly stressful, I knew how to cut off every fucking avenue that they were going to go down. When they said this, they said, "Oh, yeah." They turned around and said, "Oh, the farmer doesn't know you. He's never give you he'll never give you permission to be on there." But I knew the farmer had. So I went and I got a statement from the farmer saying, "I've known Sean, we've given permission, here it is." So in every line I would cut them off. When the producer
specification though, isn't it? It's like BRC. You've got well, it's like BRC.
Yeah.
If you've got a specification to work to, you know
Yeah.
that you've got that, same as with the
Yeah.
police, you know what's going to happen. I've got to get that right. I've got to get that right. When auditors and other people start making stuff up that you've got targets that you've got to do, that's when it gets hard.
And that's when, and you've got to remember, when it came to the police, I was playing for me. There was nobody else really that was going to suffer well, my parents would have if I went to jail, etc. Do you know what I mean? But there was nobody else looking at getting into trouble other than me. I was saving my own skin every day, and I had nothing else to do but to save my skin in them circumstances. So I would just fight every day, and I would put all my time and effort into it. And we got there, and we shut down all the lies and the avenues that they were trying to push it in. Like for instance, the police, I can remember, they got a photo that seized all my computers and interrogated them, and they got this photograph of a little white Jack Russell on top of a car, and there's a dead creature next to it, and I'll tell you in a second. So they said, "Oh, we'll produce this fucking photograph," and they said, "Oh, we've taken this off your computer, and it's a Jack Russell Terrier next to a dead badger." And I was thinking, well, I've never had a Jack Russell in my life because they're not my cup of tea, and I think they're shit. Sorry if you've got a Jack Russell, I'm sure you love it, but they're not my fucking cup of tea. And I was looking, and I just burst into laughter, and the cop got in. "You think this is funny? You think this is funny?" And Solicitor stopped the fucking conversation, went out. He said, "What are you laughing at?" I said, "It's not a fucking badger, it's a groundhog. It's the wrong animal, the wrong size, the wrong colour, the wrong shape, the wrong fucking everything. Look at it." And he looked at it, and he was like, "Oh yeah." So he went back in, and he said, "Oh, that's not a badger, it's a groundhog. I'll find the photo and I'll tag it in the comments." And I can remember my solicitor saying, "This is how far you will go." And they said, "Well, actually, the specialist vet and the specialist badger person from the Badger Conservation Trust or whatever it is, they identified it as a badger as well." And I was like, "You're fucking taking the piss." And they're like, "Yeah." So they're just, but this is what I mean. I knew where that photo had come from. So I searched it. I found the book. I got the book imported from America. And it was like, there you go. So I was always shutting it down. But the problem with the CPD was we have Gary to think of. We have the boys. We have Pest Software. We have the lads. I feel like there's more pressure on us now. And I went into a situation where I thought there was a number of tick lists for us to hit, which we had hit. And then I got told, no, not good enough. And I was like, what? Why is it not good enough? And with me, I'm not self-righteous, but I'm very righteous. Right is right, fair is fair, and wrong is wrong. I don't always get it right, but I'll tell you when I don't. And if I'm fucking shouting my mouth off telling you you're a cunt and I'm getting it wrong and you tell us I'm wrong, I'll just say to you, "Oh, fucking hell, I got it wrong, sorry." Like, hands up, it's not fucking me. And it's just been, incredibly difficult, like incredibly difficult, because the goalposts move at every single fucking meeting that we have, and they never move in our favor. They move away from us on every single occasion. Like, without going into it, because it's boring. And then I feel like I have to put something out to tell people what's going on, and I'm seen as the problem. There's a post. Did you see the post the other day about the only two schemes are BASIS and BPCA?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's in 2026. Like, so that's like in a year's time, and we've just got to go through the authorization to get there. But when I read it, I thought, fucking hell, this is clear. For me, I thought this is clearly aimed at us. Like, why would you write that? This is aimed at us, or maybe it's not. It was correct. Don't get us wrong. The information was correct, but it was presented in a way that didn't do us any favors. So I'm like, now I've got to put a post out and explain where we're at. But the powers that be will see it as me being the problem for updating my members on what we are doing and what we're doing for them, which is what every organization should be doing. But I'm seen as the problem, and then you've got to go in and sit in a room with them and like fight your corner, and you're like, this is a fucking joke. This, like, I'm literally trying to give the industry something that will help, that's been a bottleneck for years and years and years, that the people want and the people are liking, and I'm getting fucking thrown the wolves, and we're getting judged by a different standard to everyone else. So it's just difficult, you know.
Yeah. So here's a cat amongst the pigeons. So of course this has been brought in. So anyone who has come late to this conversation, what we are doing with CPD at the moment in the industry is Crew has requested, asked, set forth that in order to try and bring the other sectors of pest management into alignment with professional pest controllers, so we're talking gamekeepers, we're talking farmers, that everyone who wants to purchase professional strength rodenticides now ostensibly should play by the same rules, because previously having access to Red Tractor or having access to your farm assurance schemes, you didn't have to have a CPD requirement. You didn't necessarily have to have a safe use of rodenticides. There was a lot of loopholes as a result of that. And in the early days, this back door was left open because there are a lot of farmers and a lot of gamekeepers and not a lot of pest managers. And we saw how much of a struggle it was to try and get everyone in the pest management industry to a minimum level of qualification. What chance would we have had with the wider community? So this kind of like backdoor was left in there, but that window of grace has now disappeared or is now disappearing, and as a result of that, gamekeepers, farmers need to have a minimum level of qualification followed by proof of continual professional development or redoing their exam every so often. Now the thing with this is this has all come about because we have we're trying to bring the gamekeeping and the farming communities into this. Now the gamekeeping and farming communities, to my mind, are not going to join, for whatever reason, a pest control orientated CPD scheme. And I believe that there are several other Crew recognized CPD schemes that are specifically aimed at agriculture. Of that, they were having a look at, so the farming community has its own CPD sort of like systems. It has its own.
Well, they have
requirements.
they have their own they have their own part of BASIS, don't they?
They have their own part of BASIS. There are other bits, you have your spray management guilds. There's a lot of other bits and bobs. There are a lot of, farming is to us as, we are to farming. It's, you kind of know what it is, but you don't know the intricacies of it, and vice versa. So they are going to be potentially recording these on their own systems. So the point being here is this is a bit of a weird one, because I imagine, Sean, that your CPD system, you are not planning on rolling it out to every farmer and every gamekeeper. This is for pest managers. This is a CPD scheme, a CPD wallet specifically for pest management. And so why this weirdness?
Do you know what it is? There's that much that happens behind the scenes that I won't be aware of, absolutely will not be aware of, in terms of their meetings in relation to us, that I'm at a point where I don't even try to second guess what's going on, because there's that many people involved. I think there's like 20 members of the working group, and they've all got the little things, NFU, Scottish NFU, fucking this, that, and I'm just like that. Like, I would blow my own brains trying to second guess and work out what's going on. And this is what I'm saying when it comes to the police, although that was a lot more, I knew what I was walking into. With this, you're like, I haven't got a fucking clue. So at the minute, it's like there's balls getting shot at it. We're fucking shooting them down left, right, and centre, you know. So I don't know is the honest answer, but I just think if we keep shooting the balls down, they can't. I've got to put them in a position where they can't say no. That's what we've got to do. As a business, we have to put them in a position where they can't say no.
So the thing is, from a couple of questions there, so basically for everybody that might not know, it's either going to be your 3 gained crew approved CPD points each year, along with your other CPD points, or you retake your safe use of identicide every 5 years.
Yeah.
Which is the crazy stumbling block.
So this is where a lot of the confusion comes in, because you've got membership to associations, namely BPCA, MPTA, and you have to hit their criteria to do that. Like, one of the MPTA's criteria is you have to be a member of a CPD scheme, and you have to get 20 hours, 20 points worth of CPD every year. The crew standard will be you have to get 3 points, I believe. You don't have to get 20, you have to get 3. But those 3 points are very specific points which will change every year and will be set by crew, and they're going to provide the training for those 3 points. So there's almost how it's going to work, and I don't think anyone knows truly. There's probably going to, and this is where we're at, you're probably going to end up having more than one scheme. You're going to have more than one scheme, but those schemes are going to have to be within a scheme. And what I mean by that is, you've got me who kills rats, and I'm a member of the MPTA. I'm going to have to get 20 points, and 3 points of that are going to have to be for this. Someone who's not a member of the MPTA but wants to continue to buy this will only have to get 3 points, but they'll have to get the crew 3 points. And then, of course, you've got people on the 5 years thing. But then what we've seen BPCA trying to change the rules on training and specialisms and all that. So what happens if you are a bird netter? What happens if you are a honeybee remover? What happens if you're a heat treatment guy, where you don't need to do the 3 points, but you're probably still going to have to do the 20 points to be an MPTA member? So then it's like, but then you're going to, and it's going to be you're going to have it for point of sale. So they're going to have to get a certificate, but you can't give them the certificate if they haven't had the 3 points. And you're like, I think I know how we're going to organize it within our system, but we've got a year to work that out, and I don't think anyone needs to worry about that. It will be worked out.
It'll be worked out.
So from what you're saying there, I mean, if you're a bird specialist or a wildlife specialist and you don't have any interest in rodents, then realistically there's no need to do your 3 CPD points based at rodents. Because you're not going to buy to do the only reason you're doing those 3 CPD points is to buy rodenticide.
But listen to this though. One of the conditions they've put on my scheme is that if they do not do this, if the people don't have the basic use or become a level 2 qualified pest controller within 18 months, I've then got to kick them off my scheme. And I'm like, that doesn't work for a lot of the industry because they're not doing rats. And I can't kick them off my scheme because then they can't be a member of the MPTA. And you're like, this is what I mean. The goalposts are changing all the time, but we're the only people who are being audited and judged on it. None of the other schemes are. It's literally just our scheme.
So that means, though, if you're audited and judged on it and you get it, your scheme will be far and away better than the other schemes that haven't been audited.
Well,
the other schemes are still audited.
But
they are.
Are they?
They're not.
Who by?
They're not. There will be.
I believe.
So what they're going to do is in 2026 they're going to say that the schemes have to be subject to an external audit. But I've asked the question, what's the specifications? Tell us the specifications now so we can set it up. And I haven't got the specifications. So imagine someone coming to you and saying, oh, by the way, that site that you're doing the pest control for, it's going to be subject to a BRC specification test audit. And you go, okay, no bother. What are they? And they go, we're not telling you.
Don't know.
However, fucking hell, we've got to get this in order here. And they go, don't worry, you've got 12 months to get it right. And you go, but what are the specs? And they go, we're not telling you. We're not telling you. It'll be on pest control. It'll be on cleanliness. And you'd be like, no. Not the fucking, what are the fucking specs? How do you want this presented? And it's like, well, you present your data and we'll have a look at it and we'll tell you if it's right or not. Like that's not how this should be working in my eyes.
No, and I think you've hit the nail on the head. We've got 12 months. This is relatively uncharted territory, is it not? We've, it is the first. Well, it is at the end of the day, because this is the first time we've actually tried to do something like this. Anyway,
but in all fairness, you say we've got 12 months, but basis have had how many years, and they still can't flip and get it right.
And remember, Alex, I don't have 12 months. Remember, I don't have 12 months, and they. So what's going to happen is, regardless, the other two schemes are going to be allowed to continue. I have 9 months. Because if I get quarterly checks, which they've put on me and only me, I get one in March, one in June, one in August, but then the next one's December. So I haven't got my scheme by then. So I've got to get everything in place by August, which we'll do. I'm sure we'll get it by March. So you're like, hang on a second, like why isn't everyone being looked at like this? But it's literally only us. And I know what's happened. I don't think it's personal. What's basically happened is they've always been there, so they're not going to rock the boat with them. And we've come in, we've got to get this right with this one. So now they're looking at us, and we're running the gauntlet for everyone. But why isn't, if this is a new scheme in 2026, why are everyone not being judged by this?
Because you are first to market, you're first through the gate.
But Alex, it's a brand new scheme.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
in 2026.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. This is why it's uncharted. This is why it's
brand new.
Everyone. Yeah, what I'm saying is everyone starts from scratch at 2026 because it's a new scheme, and they've said we've got 2025 to get ready. That's what they've said.
It's a brand new scheme for everybody.
In 2025, there's only us. So if they're using 2025 to get ready, why? And this is what they need to see to make sure it's compliant for 2026. Why is everyone not doing it?
Can't answer you that at all. I can only assume that there are conversations happening behind closed doors similar to the ones we are having right now, and I'd hope there are. I think everyone is going to have to. Well, this isn't
closed doors, is it?
No, I said like the conversation we're having now. But with that, you would have mentioned that if there is a set of standards,
I don't want this to be a conspiracy theory, because I don't think it is. I genuinely, and if I promise you, if I thought this was a conspiracy theory where they're all sitting in a room going, let's get Sean, I would fucking see it. I don't. What I think's happened is we've popped up at the absolute worst or best time, and they've looked at it and went, well, they're doing that, so we know they're doing it. They're doing their thing over there. And then I've had to get authorization, so then they've looked at it. But unfortunately, when you've got 20 people sitting on a committee looking at stuff who are creating their wish list, and they know it's coming in, the pressure's on them to get it right. We've sort of popped up at a point with 20 people doing the thing, putting the pressure on. And we're just getting punched in the face for it. And you're like, I don't mind getting punched in the face as long as it's fair. As long as everyone's getting punched in the face. Do you know what I mean?
So the other thing is, just so that everyone knows, so BPCA scheme, BPCA registered, that's a self-registering point, isn't it?
Yeah.
You go on, Alex.
No, yes and no. I mean, you can the BPCA registered scheme operates like any other scheme. The novelty of BPCA registered when it came out was that alongside your structured CPD entries, so for courses, for magazines, for webinars, the rest of it, there was an option to have a self-recorded element which could account for so many of your CPD points a year, and it was occasionally ordered. So you could sit there and say, I have I went for a meeting today with Clive or Hugh or Sean or anyone like that. We had a good conversation, and these are the things I learned. It's not just a case of I want 3 points, tick. No, you had to say I did this. These were the learning outcomes I got from it. I spent half an hour reading Malice, Rats and Mice by Malice, and
But
there we go.
is
That was the
self-registered,
novelty of
isn't
that.
it?
That is
you don't.
self-registered, but it
Whereas with the basis prompt scheme, you have to, if you had a meeting with your team or with your local rep, you actually have to submit what you've learned to them for them to then evaluate it and tell you how many points you were getting, which is all a bit long-winded, wasn't it, really? Whereas
it was a bit long-winded. It made it quite difficult. Yeah.
So with your scheme, Sean, how does that work?
Do you know what it is? I think this is the joy of, and we've been through this in the podcast before, being that small micro business. We basically have speed on our side, and that's why I'm not worried about this 12-month thing, because we can adapt so fucking fast. Because I don't have a board of directors to go through. I don't have people to fucking consult. Me and Gary get it, and I go, how we're going to do this, and this. I tell him what he thinks. He tells what he thinks. We're in probably within 24 hours, whatever they sent to us, we've got solved. Right? Done. We had a meeting with the MPTA the other day, and something they brought up was when you register your course as a provider, there's a box where you can write in what the course is. And Kevin Lawrenson turned around and said, wouldn't it be good if you could just download the the flyer straight into that so people could see it, like download the media into it? So Gaz went, yeah. And as I'm talking to him, 10 minutes later, Gaz went, done. Do you know what I mean? Like, done. Like, that's how fast it can move. So I'm not worried about the jumping through the hoops, but what we do is we try to take the best from each scheme. So when I was in the BPC and you could self-register, I loved that. Because we learn differently. We all learn differently. Some of the stuff that I knew I was learning, and a lot of the stuff we were learning at the time was outside of our industry. So there's no way in the world you are going to get CPD points for it. If I go and speak to someone about a chimney, if I go and have a fucking meeting with a chimney sweep for 2 hours about fucking air circulation in a chimney, you ain't getting CPD points for that on the basis one, but you were on the BPCA one. So I was like, right, we're going to self-register because there's lots of people who need that. I needed it. We've got this ability to move. Yeah, exactly. We'll have that. But we also wanted the stuff that Basis did with the, it went yesterday for asbestos awareness training, 8 hours. We've now got that. Asbestos awareness and category B removal. So we've got that now. So you put that into our scheme and you've got it. You can put your certificate on. And we're just trying to pick the best of both worlds. And then Gary comes into his own. Because I'll tell him what we want and how we want it. He looks totally disinterested, fucks off to his room, and then presents a system that is just a lot. It's so much simpler than I'd envisaged, but works so much better. And then we get people going.
I think we need to point out to everybody that although with all of the schemes, if you say you self-registering your points, you can't just make it up. There is at some stage.
Absolutely not.
No.
You have to put some provenance on it. You have to be able to show what you've done and what you've learned. So, for instance, there you go. Just complete a day's course on rat-proof patch lining. So for Matthew Price, he would go on our system. It's probably retech, I'm guessing, because we've done that. He'll do his retech, put his retech certificate in there, and he'll write in what it is, so that when we do our sampling of it and we'll bring up his self-register, we'll look at it and go, well, he's self-registered 8 hours. What is it? Oh, yeah, he's done this course. There's a certificate there. He's done this. He's learned that. That's tick. I can Google that. I spent 2 hours watching Beauties and Beasties podcast. All right, what did you learn? So you can't just write watch the podcast, because if you do, the people get dip sample and bring them up and go, what did you learn? What did you do? Because we've got a dip sample, So it's best if you write in there, watch Sean Mooney talk shit for 2 hours on Beauties and Beasties podcast about CPD and pissing
Every
off the
week.
powers that be. Do you know what I mean? Like, I probably watched that. Sean being a cunt and talking about going to jail. Yeah, got that one. Tick. Fucking watch that. Do you know?
How
do you
many
know what I mean?
CPD
So
points do you get for that then?
1.5. You get, if it's an hour and a half, you get, in ours is dead easy. You get a point per hour or part of an hour. So
Yeah. And I
either
think that's
1.5 hours
with the other self-registered schemes as well. Now, the question I've got to ask here, because
that's standard across all industries, folks, just so you're aware. We looked into that. Every CPD scheme at the point per hour, so that's what we went with. It just worked.
I was about to say, so a question here is, and this is the one that worries me more often. Now, of course, we're talking here, you're bringing in a new scheme, you're getting a lot of flack for it because you are, okay, you're new boy on the block, but also you're treading, as I said, uncharted ground. We got to remember that all of these CPD schemes happened at some point in the past, and they all had to furrow and fight their ways to become recognised and yada yada. And you're just the latest in a tranche, and it sucks, but you will get there. I've no doubt about it. Now, the thing that I've got here is we've got, schemes, horses for courses, whatever you like here. In our industry at the moment, the only people currently doing CPD is if you're a member of the MPTA, you've got to be part of a scheme. If you're a member of the BPCA, you've got to be part of a scheme. Now, collectively, both the BPCA and MPTA, I think, represent roughly half of the industry, probably a little bit more, because you speak to them and one says we do 30 to 40% and the other one says we do 30-40%, but there's overlap. People are a member of both, and because we don't fully know how many pest managers are out there, the assumption is there's probably an equal number of people completely unregistered. They've done their qualifications and now never have done it. They don't engage with podcasts, magazines, meetups, anything like that. They're not on the forums. They buy their products from the retailers and off they go and send small furry things to Jesus, as Neil would say. Now, my concern is what happens in 2026 when suddenly these people who have been out of the loop, they've not been networking, they've not been paying attention. And that's the point. What suddenly happens to our industry at that point?
And this is the worry that it's going to kick our industry back, because then those people will have one avenue to buy in rodenticides, and what they're going to have to do is they'll very quickly sit the open award, the 2-hour course online. They'll get that, and then that'll be them for 5 years. So they don't have to do any more CPD. And then in 5 years' time, they'll sit it again in 5 years' time. So you're going to kick them back from where they're going.
Or they will choose, which I've seen a little bit popping up in places, which I still think that the information, they'll either just go traps or they will buy amateur use products. So they'll buy Brodifocum at 0.25%.
But the thing is, they become uncompetitive at that point, because everyone knows, although you can buy Brodifocum at 2.25%, it's significantly more expensive to buy Brodifocum 2.5% in a dozen half doses. It's not that.
But genuinely, if you're going to charge 250 quid for a 3-part treatment for rats, and you buy Brodifocum, you go buy big cheese in B&Q, a bag of big cheese, going to cost you 15 quid. That isn't significantly part of 200 quid, is it?
Those people then, they're limited to pretty much buying little sachets of bait or buying blocks. They won't have access to the more exciting formulations.
I'm just going to bring something up here, because this is the worry that I have. There is a number of people who believe that a lot of these are money-making schemes, and I absolutely understand fully why they think that crew, that CPD is a money-making scheme and and I don't think they are. I just don't think that we represent them very well, and I think we get it terribly wrong in terms of speaking to those type of people who believe that, and we don't let them know exactly what's going on. But this goes back to my point that when you do start letting people know what's going on, you're seen as a problem because you're talking openly, and we should be talking openly about stuff. Here's the problem.
This is talking openly.
This is why we're trying to get there.
We cannot say you cannot say that it is a money-making scheme. That really gets to me, because a lot of people forget that if it hadn't have been for Crew, we would have lost rodenticides, full stop. End of story.
Yeah. But they're right in a way. The reason why it's a money-making scheme is so that, and let's get this right, the manufacturers and Crew are put in place so the manufacturers and distributors could continue to sell products, that they could make their money, that we could continue to buy, so that we could continue to make products.
But
now, what you can't do, sorry, I'm going to say, what you can't do is you can't pick and choose the bits that you don't like as money-making schemes to get there. Oh yeah, well, I'm making money buying, so that's absolutely fine. But I don't want to spend my money on fucking CPD because that's just a money-making scheme. Everything out there, and you've got to understand, it's a big system of cogs turning to get from point A to point B. And if that's what we've got to do to get the authority that we need to continue to use these products, then that's what we've got to do.
But money making, it basis prompt. I'm not sticking up for basis prompt because I think they show, but it's 35 quid a year.
Yeah,
it's like, if you can't afford 35 quid a year to make the industry better and to make yourself look more professional, jack it in now.
Yeah. And I agree. So a lot of people say money-making scheme is because it's forcing you to do CPD and the rest of it, or it's been brought about because people want you to either sign up to a scheme. Now, as anyone can say, most of these schemes, you're not going to get rich and retire young running a CPD scheme, or running. It's number one, that's not going to be a thing. But a lot of these CPD schemes, I mean, so for example, Sean, your CPD scheme, you're going to offer CPD, you're going to sort of like record CPD. How many courses are you going to run? Are you going to be running the safe use of rodenticide courses?
No, and I can tell you.
So just there we go. So you're not making money on the training, so
where it's going to cost us. And this was one of the concerns I had, because I've now, as a result of them giving us quarterly checks, I've now got Pest Software now has to pay for that CPD scheme for at least the next 12 months before we get any revenue. Now we're going to do the MPT on the road days to let people know. I've got to buy the stand. We're not getting that for free. That's 450 quid a stand, 5 stands. That money's got to be recuperated. The Lindsay, who sits in the office and puts everyone on and deals with the thing, her wages have got to be paid. So in putting us on the quarterly checks, not only did it sort of hamstring us, because then it kicked us, or we didn't have that, it meant that I've now got to physically, financially hold up the scheme for the next 12 months because we've got no income coming from it.
So the CPD. Oh God!
Somebody said,
let me finish mine.
Go on, sorry, Alex.
Please. So of course, CPD are wallet and scheme holders, not making money, not going to be there. People doing the training, they're going to be doing technically not going to be doing any more training than they're already doing. And the people providing the training are actually, in largest part, the independent companies who are totally independent of the CPD providers at that point. You can get your full CPD allowance without ever having left your house, without ever having walked away. You don't spend a penny. You can if you want, and I fully encourage people to do that.
The one thing I would say is, and Darren says, yeah, it's a badge that no one asks for, and he's right. Like let's get this right. Yeah. However, what I'm going to say to you is the following, and I promise you, I'm not saying this because we have a scheme. I'm saying this because I'm a great believer in CPD, and I've said it before. If you look at all the people on the right-hand side in the comments of this now, and you see who's there and who's commenting and who you know and who you don't know, I guarantee you now, every single one of the people there that you know through CPD, whether that's going to a breakfast meeting, whether that's going to Pest Tech, PestX, PPC, whether that's going to a Killgerm, a Pelsis, a 1ENV, a Pest Fix training day. This is how you meet people. So if you stop thinking about CPD as being a mill around your neck, and you start thinking of it and you understand the opportunities that it brings. But again, if you think logically about, if you understand what CPD is, and it's just fucking learning, It's just learning, sitting here, watching this, engaging with us. It's going to get you 1.5 points. Like, you only need 20. Like, but you've sat there and you've learned loads, and you'll hear people talking about Fendona coming back, about FICAM W going, FICAM D going, about this, about that. You know, you'll see these people, and then all of a sudden you'll be in a conversation with them on Facebook, and you'll make friends. Never met you. Do you know what I mean? I've never met you. He's one of my best pals. I've never met him. How did I meet you? Through CPD, because we went on the pest chat on a Friday night, which you can self-register. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
There's 1,000 opportunities.
the other thing is, of course, just, I mean, I have to say again, there are other CPD schemes available, but Darren says it's a badge nobody asks for. But what's the name of your scheme, Sean?
British Pest Register. It's going to be called.
Who doesn't want a badge and a logo saying British Pest Register? Because for once, it does what it says on the tin. It doesn't say anything that nobody knows what it's about. It conjures up instantly in your mind what it is. I'm a member of the British Pest Register.
Additionally, it's the badge no one asked for, and I'd agree, because show people. This is it. Is that if we get into a culture of when you walk through the door, before you walk through the door, say, "Hi, sir or madam, just to confirm, here is me, here is my ID. You can see that I am a fully up-to-date member of, and a t-shirt, mate. Billy,
I promise, I would have said the fuck up.
Generally, let me finish my point, because when you get to someone's door, when you get to a business, we get the rest of it, nobody's ever asked me, have you ever offered it? Have you ever, and let's start that culture of, hold up your card, whichever that card is, registered basis, British Pest Register, hold it up and say, I've done my CPD, I'm keeping up to date, I am, and make that part of your sales pitch, make that part of our industry and persona. If you want professionalism, then you are going to have to be the first person to show that you are professional. And that starts with your attitude. Okay, so nobody's asked. Give a shit. Show them anyway. Okay, here we go, madam. This is my card. Here's my credentials. Here's my smiley little fucking face. Tattooed onto your forehead.
Tattooed on your head.
Make a fuss about it.
No, you're right. Not mine, anyone else's, whatever it is. Embroidered on your sleeve. What you see on every gas fitter that comes to your house.
Gas safe.
It's safe on his arm, and it makes you feel like he's safe to touch what you are doing, doesn't it?
And just for once, rather than having a spurious name on it, basis, and then they look at it and they go, "What's that about then?" You got something on your, whether it's BPCA registered, because with the BPCA registered sign, it says British Pest Control Association, so it does what it says on the tin. You can see what it means. British Pest Register, you can see what it is. So it's that image, isn't it? I'm part of the British Pest Register. Oh, okay. He must know what he's doing. I'm part of British Pest Control Association Register. Oh, they know what they're doing.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
But
anyway, let's talk something else rather than CPD, because it's taken over my life.
You can't. What else? You've only got 9 minutes.
Well, what else do you want to know about quickly before we finish?
Right. Well, we've talked a little about your sort of like app system you bought in. You're now rocking the boat with your CPD. Let's be fair here. All three of us here have all taken very different directions in our pest management careers. So if you were to give advice, you've taken the entrepreneurial route here of development of software and helping people. I'm the chemical route. Hugh's just been in it since they were still clubbing seals to death. All three of us. If you were to give advice to some of the younger people watching, or even those who think, I've got a good idea, I've got something that I think can benefit our industry, I've got an innovation, I've got a thought, I've got some spark.
Listen, and this isn't just advice for this industry. I'm not the sharpest tool in the box in terms of there's a lot cleverer people than me, there's a lot more academic people than me, there's a lot more qualified people than me. That doesn't mean you're going to be successful. The difference between someone who gets there and doesn't is let's not talk my economics. is the person who is going to fucking give it a go. You know, that you've just got to go and give it a go. And if you fail, so fucking what? I'm well aware of the fact that since we've started doing this podcast, there's about 5 to 10% of the people who love it and are engaged with it and are massive supporters. There's,
Which we've got to say thank you for.
Yeah, who are fucking brilliant. There's 80% of them who are watching it and getting a little bit from it. And then there's another 10% who would fucking love to see me fail. Now, if you let the 10% who would love to see you fail stop you from doing something, then you're fucking dead in the water. Like, just go and do it. If you think it'll work, go and do it, because even if you fail and it doesn't work, the next idea you have, you've got that knowledge of why it failed, and you can try and push it a little bit further. Just
If
don't
you've
be
never
scared.
failed, you've never tried.
Oh yeah, just fucking, yeah.
It's a really interesting point you make, because in management training, of which I've done various courses on management and yeah, of course, just give it up. So basically, but I've done various courses on management training, leadership, all these things. And one of the things I do say is in any demographic of people that you have that you're speaking to or engaging with, often there'll be 20% who, if you say we're going to go storm the gates of hell, they'll be like, I'll be back in 5 minutes, I'm getting my wetsuit and a canoe, and they'll be right behind you. And then there's 60% of people who are like, all right, okay, I'll follow along. And then there is 20% of people, and those people, you could buy them a Ferrari and they'd accuse you of trying to give them a speeding ticket. Now, the big problem we all face, and we all do it in management, in life, in the rest of it, is we will focus on the 27 people who are actively pushing against you, because you don't like it. You don't want that. That sensation of someone actively sort of like ridiculing or pushing you down, and you spend a huge amount of time focusing on those people to try and lift them up and elevate them to the 20% that like you. And reality, you shouldn't. You should just be like, right, great, thank you for your opinion, fuckity bye now. Because all that you do, if you focus on that 20% who are actively railing against you, is the 60% who are on the fence will be like, well, he doesn't pay me any attention. He doesn't, he doesn't give me any input. He doesn't try and lift me up. He just leaves me to my own devices. And that guy's being a knob, and he spends all of his time trying to sort of like sweet talk him. What you should really do, if you are in these situations, forget the 20% that are pushing against you, reward the 20% that are running with you, and focus on elevating that 60% of people who are on the fence, because they are going to be the ones who will become your cheerleaders in the future. And I think it's the same as what you just said there. If you have people who are detracting from your system, don't spend all your time trying to convince them your system is great, your idea is great.
Like,
the ones that are on the fence, that's the ones.
Just fucking like, it's just, it's dead easy, isn't it? You're the leader, you are the fucking captain of your ship, and you sail it in a direction, and people will either want to come with you or they will not. But you can't stop and try and keep everyone happy. You've just got to go and fucking do something. Just do it. Just fucking drive it home and do it. And once you start doing that, things kind of start to fall into place. That's what I've found, anyways.
And anyone who is taking this path of, self-learning and taking these products, I'm going to get a bit philosophical. There's two people I'd really recommend having a read or listen to. The two philosophers, Marcus Aurelius, the Marcus Aurelius, the guy who was the Roman emperor, wrote a book called Meditations, and it's fantastic, and it's a lot of his musings, but it's all about how to overcome it. So he wrote another book called The Obstacle is the Way, and it literally means that you advance through adversity. The obstacle is the way in which you progress. And the other one is a gentleman called Seneca, another Roman, who wrote letters to one of his nephews, but within those letters there was a lot of very good advice on how to overcome failure and how to adapt and how to basically move forwards in life without letting life drag you down. So my advice was read those, and I think there's a couple other people who put them in the comments as well, some other books. But I think a little bit of weekend reading for you.
Got to follow your gut, not your head, because it's your head that talks you out of doing stuff. Your gut will tell you the right thing to do, whether it's leave that job, do this, do that, and then your head kicks in and goes, but I need the money from the job, I need this, I need that. Like, you've got one fucking life, folks. You've got one fucking life. Like, just go and do it. If your gut tells you, just be brave, and that's...
Is that Moon Onyx?
I don't know what that means, but...
Well, it says Mooney Economics, so it's Moonomics.
Oh, yeah, no. So, just before we go, in this, again, I can tell you that, I could tell you this without mentioning it being CPD, and I don't want to go back over it, but this is why CPD is great. However many years ago, 5, 6 years ago, I went to an MPT on the road day in Manchester. Clive Stewart was one of the guest speakers. Simon Whitehead was one of the other guest speakers. Went up, spoke them both, got to meet them, both become friends now. Both people who I ring up. Clive was like, I'm going to start running a course on honeybee removals. Never done it before. And he just went, fuck it, I'm going to do it. And I was like, sign me up, I'll bring my lads. Do you know what I mean? He give it a go. He's now got a couple of courses. He runs them all throughout the year. He's wrote a book, you know, because he went and give it a go. And then Simon, and then we started doing them. I think we're all right at them. Why? Because we went to a fucking 3-hour meeting in Manchester. We got in the car, we drove, and we got there. Like, that's what gets you to where you want to be. And now, within reason, if I had a job in Manchester, which happens, and they said to us, who should you get? I'll say, oh, get Clive. And if there was one up my way, Clive will ring us up and go, there's probably a woman going to give you a ring. She's north of you. She's looking for someone. She's being in touch. Why? Because we went to an MPT on the road day. That's what comes of it. It's thousands of pounds. But the economics thing is, as much as Clive absolutely started me on my journey of honeybee removals, 1,000,000%, we've had lots of talks about how you price your business, how you value your business, and whether, you know, and I'm sure Clive,
hour and a half.
Yeah, that's a fucking rabbit hole and a half. But yeah, and we price up of value, not of cost. And I think that's a big difference, you know, for anyone starting out. Value, not of cost. But let's not go down that route tonight. It's another chat for another.
I'd like to tell just one last story before we close. We've got 4 minutes, and I promise to keep it in there. A couple of years back, when I was weighed environmentally, I ran one of my own breakfast meets. I thought, hey, you know, let's do this. Let's have a whole load of people turn up. And so I rang around all the pest managers, all the ones I could find in the directory in the local sort of like 3 counties areas. And I'll be honest, it was the first one I ran. Only about 12 turned up. It, you know, wasn't a huge event, but that was just me phoning people around. And you'd be amazed as to the number of people who just turned up, and in a church hall with 4 corners, how 12 pest managers all managed to find their own corner to stand in. It was impressive. And when I said, hey, you know, why are you not chatting, talking? You know, the rest of it's like, because I know him. He took a job off me last week, or I know him, and you know, he does this and I do this, and I don't. It's like, okay, well, what do you do? Well, I do moles and you know, moles and rabbits. But what's he do? He does, you know, wasps and the rest of it. So actually, you're not competition at all. You're if anything, you can pass this work on. And I solidly believe, and I tell this story, that at the end of that breakfast meet, at the end of that little thing, people were swapping numbers, they're changing notes, and to this day, I believe, I hope, that they still are in competition with each other. Still in collaboration with each other, sorry, not competition. And I solidly believe the size of our industry, the number of pests, and the complexity of the roles that we have, there is infinitely more to be gained through collaboration with your neighbours than there is competition. Yeah. There's always going to be 3 things in life: taxes, death, and pests. So we're never going to run out of rats and mice. We're never going to run out of wasps. We're never going to run out of Asian hornets. You know, these
that's exactly it. Yeah. But and for anyone watching this, as a final note on this, competition will drive your prices up. Fucking arguments will drive your prices down. If you hate the bloke who works down the road from you and he hates you, you'll both want to win that work, and then you'll start competing on price, and you'll start dragging each other down. It'll be detrimental. Don't be a knobhead. Ring them up, speak to them. If you see them in the shop, talk to them. They'll talk to you, and then all of a sudden he's not your enemy, and it's like, what? Like, he's charging 50 quid for a wasp nest and you're at 70. Then what he's probably going to do is he's probably going to fucking bring his price up to 60, 65, and then you're close, and then you're like, actually, I'm going to jump it to 75, and then he's like, fuck it, you're getting 75, I'm going to be 75, because you're friends and you talk to each other, and you'll come up. But as soon as you start arguing, and you'll have seen it with pest controllers who've fallen out, they start getting fucking funny with each other, and then they start cutting each other's throat to get that job, to argue with them, to fight with them, and they start arguing over the same things. Like, don't be a knob. Don't be a knob because it hurts your fucking business. Go and be nice to the people next door, and you'll get so much further on.
All
Yeah,
right, ladies
look,
and gentlemen, from
and if you think I'm talking shit, T's Pest Quest the other day, never met him. He's like, "Where are you?" I'm like, "In the office, come on down." Wanders in, cup of coffee, natter, like, get, do you know what I mean? Like, I promise you. Like,
Did he give you a biscuit?
The what?
Did you give him any biscuits?
No, you got the perv on, the fit secretary sitting next to us, so hobnobs were out the window.
Oh.
Oh God! I was about to say, can we just end this sort of like this chat with each of us just no, like with each of us just giving one, just one bit of advice.
You know what it is? There's loads of them on here will have seen the secretary down at Pestex, and they'll be like, "Yeah, fair play." Like, it's fucking brilliant. The amount of people who come in here on a Monday for a cup of coffee and stop for 5.5 hours and don't fucking leave. It's unreal. I think they don't stop this long any other fucking day of the week. It's only when Lindsay's in.
Each of you in turn, one bit of advice from today's podcast that you could give. If you could give your competitor or your early self a piece of advice for your business going forwards. So, Sean.
Mine's 2 bits of advice. One is go and buy a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad and read it. And read it 4 or 5 times. It's not a difficult read. Go and fucking read it. I promise you, I read it and it was a big changing point in my mindset to life and money, especially if you were brought up like me, where money was a bad word and profit was a bad word and people who had it were evil and da 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 da. Go and buy that book and fucking read it. Like that's all I can say to you. And then the second thing is, and I'll put it in the link, and there was a speech by Steve Jobs at Stanford. Have you seen it?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, I'll put it in the thing. Please, 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 if you are starting out in business or your little boy's leaving school or whatever it is, make them watch that fucking speech, because it is absolutely another game changer. Hopefully it will give you the confidence to go and do what you should be doing. It's a real eye opener. So Rich Dad Poor Dad, Steve Jobs Stanford address, because I'm not that great, but they're a lot better than me, so go for them too.
Awesome. Hugh, what's yours?
For me, it'd probably be 2 bits of practical advice more than any philosophical advice. One, don't ever feel pressured into doing something that you don't feel is safe, just because, and I've done it, and I look back and I think, what a cock. Because if, what the hell did I do that for? One of them was actually climbing a 25-foot ladder on my own at the top of a church with one of the heavy 210-volt transformers. So I was holding it in one hand and climbing the ladder with the other hand. And that was when I worked for a big company, because I felt the pressure as a supervisor to get the job done. So don't ever feel pressurized into doing something just for the money if you don't feel safe. And the other thing is, always price a job like you're employing somebody else to do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
What would your 2 beats be, Al?
Number 1, engage with the community, engage with the industry. Don't be an island to yourself. And do it in a positive way. Do it, to showcase yourself rather than to drag other people down. But engage with the industry, engage with news. Be a part of it. Don't just sit on the sidelines. Have your say, engage, and just become proud of who we are and what we do, and just engage with your neighbors, engage with the Facebook sites, engage with the podcast, your associations, whatever it is, but just be a part of it. Don't be a spectator. That would be my big bit of advice, because there's a lot more to be gained by having a voice than there is with the apathy that we sometimes see. For example, we'd like your opinion on glue boards. Oh, someone else will answer that. Nobody answers. We end up having an absolute shit show. We'd like to have your opinion on X, Y, and Z. Someone else will answer it, and we end up having an absolute shit show. Be a part of it, otherwise it'll pass you by, and you'll feel sad that it didn't go the way that you wanted it to. So that'd be my big bit of advice. And the other one is value yourselves more. Don't go out there and because you price your work on your perceived value, but never diminish your value. Don't just knock your prices down because you don't think you're good enough, because you're better than you think. So price that value, price that job on value, and trying to be positive here. You know exactly what I mean. So there we go. That may have 2 bits of advice: engage and know your worth, and know your worth is more than you consider it to be.
We'd never finish a podcast without the 3 questions.
I think we just had 3 questions.
We've got the standard 3 questions. We have to do them. Consistency, consistency, consistency.
Oh, okay.
So, you first, Alex.
Okay, Sean, how did you enjoy your time on the podcast?
Yeah, it's good. It's weird, isn't it? Because it flies by. Believe it or not, I don't particularly like being I don't like being the person being interviewed. I quite like sitting back and doing sort of 50% of it and watching and learning. Because obviously I can't fucking learn now from me. It's my story, innit? But I have enjoyed it, and it's made us think about what we need to do.
Didn't say something.
What?
For words for once. You're stuck for words for once. You stumbled.
No, I'm just thinking. It's like I'm thinking about what we're going to do with Pest Software and CPD, and a bit. I never think about the police days and the farrier days and all that. So it's made us reminisce a lot about some of the stuff that maybe I could have handled differently and could have done better, and that they're always difficult to stomach, aren't they? Like
That's
in the
always
cold,
life,
like
though, isn't it?
when you sit on your own, yeah. But
That's just life, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really.
I told you, ladies and gentlemen, that Sean was in the background, and I joked about the fact that he doesn't like being in the bottom seat, but it is a very different feel, isn't it? Being on the receiving end. So again, the second question is: give us a shameless plug. Well, I've no idea.
Pest Software for us, because I'm not going to plug the CPD because we're funding it. Pest Software, it's 40 quid for your first technician, 20 quid a technician after. We're not sneaky. We don't. You know what you pay. You know what you get. We don't come back to you for more money when we add stuff to it. Do you want this? Do you want that? It's an extra this. It's an extra that. I just know it works. I know it works. And it'll continue to get better. We've got gas and so yeah, Pest Software. If you want it, give us a shout. Ping us some details and I'll get you some login and you can go and have a play with it. It's really intuitive. You don't really need me to show you around it to start off with. You just go and have a play, then get in touch with us and we'll work out the finer details with it with you.
That's the same with the Pest Register, isn't it? Just ping you the details.
Yeah, just ping us the details. We'll get you added. It's usually on a Monday. Lindsay sits down and goes through them and adds them all to the systems and sends them the welcome emails and all that sort of jazz. So yeah.
And the last one, which is, who would you like to see on the podcast?
Do you know what it is? I know they're not going to come on now because of what's been said tonight, and I feel a bit shit on them. But I would love Basis to come on. I know there was some criticisms of the podcast saying that it wasn't independent, but it fucking is. It is an independent podcast. We've got 3 people from 3 different walks of life. Nobody controls us. Nobody controls the questions. Nobody controls what we can say, as you've probably guessed.
We can barely control each other. Jesus.
Yeah, and that's why it works. So I understand that we've spoke about the CPD on this, but I would love Basis or Lantra or BPC or something to come on and tell us about theirs, because I don't want this to be, you've got to fucking buy my CPD. I don't care whether you use my CPD. If it works for you and the market dictates that it's right, then please fucking use it. But I don't want people thinking that this is just for us. It's not. And they're allowed to come on and they're allowed to tell you about their products, whether that's a software firm or whatever. But that being said, it's fucking independent and we'll ask the difficult questions. Do you know what I mean? Like this, don't think you're going to come on and, you know, and get an easy ride and you can absolutely hammer me as hard as you want. That's the way it goes, you know. So I would love to see someone, whether it was a software firm or a CPD firm or something that we do that we compete with, you know, a local competitor who's going to tell you of a shit job that he's seen us do, and I've got to fucking hang my head in shame because we've all done them. I don't mind, you know, but it pissed us off the other day when I heard that those people saying that it wasn't an independent podcast. It really annoyed us, and we are, and we will continue to be.
Mm-hmm.
And Hugh, change that fucking thing back at the bottom that says the Pest Podcast for the UK. It's the independent one. It's independent.
I will.
I'd say,
So somebody asked, have we got any ratty podcasts? So quickly, next week, although it's not a specifically ratty podcast, we actually have Mark Newman, who is an environmental health officer from Gloucester City Council, and he knows a lot about pest control because he was a supervisor the same time as I was with Rent-A-Kill, and he made the jump from being a supervisor with Rent-A-Kill to being an environmental health officer. So that should be really interesting.
Do that again, Alex.
Is there
put your head back in that
Alex?
position. Because you go fluffy and fuzzy, it looks like you're going to sell the old Harry Carey there, son.
No, I've got a big bookshelf up here with all these books, and I was actually having a look to see if I had any good books to hold up. If people are wanting ratty things, and actually I do have two pretty good ones. He says, knocking his entire bookcase down. If you are looking for ratty things, Rats and Their Control, number one, and this is an age-old classic, Rats and Mice, AP Meehan.
And I'm telling you now, if you know how, Alex, you know how you said that we're not like, I said it would be the birth of the industry, and you said it would be and I said we're not very good. I promise you, read this book and you'll realize that we are miles behind the times, because this is like from years and years and years ago, and this bloke knew more then than most of the pest controllers know now about catching rats. Have a look at it. Takes about 5 months to get it. If you buy it now, go and buy it.
Okay.
Lovely stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you ever so much for joining us tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure. We'll be back to our regularly scheduled content next week. But for now, it's goodbye from me and you guys. Bye-bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Beauties and Beasties podcast.